I'm going to have two of you working on units, two groups of you that are already working on units that are already open. You can help our crews dig and screen. And then one crew is going to help us set up.
So my name is Jenna Jean, and I'm participating as an undergraduate researcher with the Tigers program to conduct research about archaeology and education.
Hi, my name's Reagan. I am a student employee working through the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab and doing excavations at North Point State Park.
My name is Maggie Fahey, and I am in the Tigers program. And I'm working here for a month, and then by the end of it, we make a pretty nice presentation, and we present a big research question, which is, we came up with it, which is archaeology and education, why does it matter?
I am an archaeologist, and I work for the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab. I've been working with Sterner for about a year and a half now, and this year she trusted me to be in charge when she wasn't on site, so I was pretty excited about that.
I think that something that's really interesting about archaeology is the way that we can preserve so much history that often gets ignored, because usually history is told through the lens of the people who had written records, which is a very small subset of people in history, and archaeology is able to uncover a lot of the stories that are forgotten about.
I would define anthropology as the study of humans. Right? When I teach my intro class, it's the humans studying other humans, everything about them, the way they build shelters, the way they talk to one another, the way they cook their food. All of those things are anthropology. Anthropologists are interested in everything it means to be human. And then archaeologists, more specifically, are interested in what people's lives were like in the past. And they use what we call material culture. So that's the stuff that people leave behind to reconstruct what those lives were like.
A lot of people think of archaeology as something to do with big stone ruins or pyramids or something like that.
So many people think that I'm digging up treasure when I'm just digging up old people's trash.
Through all of the area that we call the eastern woodlands of North America, which is the West and all up and down the East Coast, prior to Europeans arriving, the folks that were living here, the indigenous peoples of America, were not building out of stone. They were building out of organic materials like wood. And that all rots. And the only traces of it left are stains in the soil. So when more organic material enters the soil, it leaves a darker color there. So the only way that we can tell if we're inside a house or a trash pit is due to the artifacts that are coming up out of the soil, and also to changes in the soil texture and consistency and color. Those things tell us if we're in what we call a cultural layer or something that was naturally deposited.
Just to doing radiocarbon dating.
Oh, okay.
But most people don't have the funding to be able to do that.
We determined that the sites at North Point State Park were pre-contact based on the type of artifacts that are coming out of them. So you can tell the difference between, say, pre-contact pottery versus historic pottery, European pottery, because of the different production methods. So indigenous people didn't have kilns. They weren't firing their pottery at high temperatures.
No, that's pottery. That's indigenous pottery.
That's what I thought. It's okay to get wet?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, nice.
It's a long process to get from that planning stage to the artifacts are ready to go to their home in perpetuity. So, we start off with making sure to record all of the context of where artifacts come from. So that means if they're being surface collected, we get a GPS coordinate. If they are excavated out of a unit, we make sure to record the information about how deep they came from and what the XY coordinates were where they came from. Typically, you're excavating artifacts out of the ground and you're finding them while you're digging them up, or you're finding them in the screen while you're screening the soil that you just excavated. So then those artifacts go in a paper bag and they come back to the lab. Once the artifacts get back to the lab, we're going to be taking the artifacts out of their nicely labeled bag and washing them. And then you're going to put them on a tray, let them dry. And then we're going to rebag them in a new plastic bag and write the information on the plastic bag. After we've got everything rehoused in the stable containers like these plastic bags, then it's time to inventory everything. So we have to do an individual item level inventory to get information. Once everything is cataloged, then we can assign the final catalog numbers. And for projects that are done on state lands, the artifacts will be sent to the Maryland Archaeological Conservation Lab, and they will keep those artifacts. The primary things that we're finding are a lot of oyster shell and pottery, the debris from making stone tools, because making stone tools is a reductive process. You take one piece of stone, you knock little bits off of it, and that makes that debris while you're shaping it to make it into the tool that you want. So we have the debris and then the finished tools as well.
So the little sparklies in there make me think there's some sand temper too.
Okay, so yeah, the sparkly made me think steatite, but it's not sparkly enough to be steatite, so that's why I was like, I don't know what this is.
It's essential for the professional archaeological community to collaborate with and communicate with the indigenous and tribal communities in the area in which they're working. These are descending communities that have a long connection with the landscape, and we're working studying their ancestors. And in their communities, that is significant. There is an attachment to ancestors that is perhaps greater than we see in Western European societies. And so it's essential for the archaeologists to respect that and to work collaboratively with the indigenous community to come up with research questions and research methods that they feel comfortable with. And in addition to that, archaeologists benefit from indigenous knowledge. The training that we receive is not the same as the cultural knowledge that gets passed down from one generation to the next in the indigenous community.
These are ancestors that were here. So these artifacts, these resources that are in the ground is a reminder to us that these are our people, this is our history, this is our culture. And removing such, it starts to have conversations there of removing our identity as well.
Yeah, I've done a good bit of lab work so far. I've had 2 internships that were predominantly lab and collections management.
But one of our major goals was to determine if there were any intact, what we call features. So these are things like pits and posts and house floors, things that can't be removed from the site in one piece. If there were any of those left underneath what we call the plow zone, because the plow mixes up all of that soil and it gets rid of the context that we're so interested in. So we spent a lot of time looking for these intact features on the landscape. One of the places that we thought we would look was in these areas of high shell concentration, where on the surface of the field, There were thousands of bits of shell from what I assumed was a shell midden pit. It's sort of like a basin pit where people would have excavated a shallow basin in the soil, and then they dumped all of their oyster shells in there as they were eating them.
Archaeology, not only does it teach like a lot of relevant skills, like critical thinking and like using the scientific method and like learning how to use evidence, all like subjects that kids should know. And it like makes the past like more relevant and meaningful and can help like guide their actions in the present context.
I think it truly diversifies the curriculum, and the whole understanding of cultural relativity is something really important that students don't get taught unless they willingly take a course in college.
I think archaeology not only just teaches you about history in general, but it definitely teaches you about like the inequities of history, because when you shape it and reconstruct it, you can really see visually how some like people back then was treated, while also just learning about like how they lived.
As someone who is a first generation student, I never understood that archaeology was a career I could have. I didn't even really know what anthropology was when I chose it as my major. It was kind of guesswork, and it happened to work out for me. And I also think that, again, diversifying our understanding of history is really important, especially right now when we're watching so many attacks on education.
So I'm trying to find this right here. Okay. So I'm going to position myself over it and close one of my eyes until the tape measure is right over it on the centimeter line. So then I'm going to say that we are 68 centimeters over. Okay.
If archaeology is not accessible to the public, then there's really no reason to do it. Archaeology can't exist in a vacuum. Part of our mission as archaeologists has to be to educate people on what we find, and that includes the general public and our peers. Doing archaeology costs money. If we don't have public support and public interest in archaeology, then no one's going to support those kinds of enterprises. So we need to get that buy-in. And the only way we get that buy-in is by sharing how cool this stuff is and how important it is.